Hi, I wanted to make a quick video. Although this subject is so important, I'm not sure it can be quick, but I'm going to be thorough. This whole notion of having peace inside, I think, is based upon what I created as this peace-shame continuum. Shame. When I first heard that word, I didn't know what it meant, although I do now. As a former addict, I understand shame big time now. And I want to go over this thing about this side of the spectrum to this side and how it can fit in your life. When you have self-acceptance in your life, that you unconditionally love yourself, you accept all of your imperfections, of which we all have many, everybody does, then you can say to yourself, I'm enough. You can fight off the fiery darts of judgment from other people especially, but more importantly, fight off your own judgment of yourself. This is where people over here with some shame in their life don't believe that they're enough. Over here, to have peace, it's just that you unconditionally love yourself. And what I learned from John Bradshaw, my mentor, my friend, you cannot unconditionally love another person unless you unconditionally love yourself. Let me get into the shame situation for just a moment. It's really important. We live in a shame culture where, from caregivers, parents, family members, family cultures, from the school systems that you're in, from sports coaches, from churches. Everyone has got their finger out saying, you should do this, you should do this, you do that. No, 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 no. I mean, that's the shame part. For me, growing up, my parents, who I realized were full of shame, especially my mother, but even my father. I believe my father had an addiction. I didn't even realize that until I got healed of my own. And so for my parents to shame me into, or motivating me, if you will, to do what they wanted me to do, they never accepted me who I was. And I was still am probably the black sheep of the family. And as a result of that, every time I would come up with a creative thing, I mean, reading encyclopedias, I want to share it with my parents, my dad would say, loose lips, rubber lips, in our family we want you to be quiet. So in our closed home, you couldn't ever talk about anything emotionally. And so I grew up towing the line. I grew up not learning to accept myself, that I felt like I wasn't enough. I'm the third of, I have an older brother and a sister. I was third in our family. And mom and dad, when I was pregnant, mom got pregnant, I was an unplanned pregnancy. All throughout my childhood especially, I would pester and bug my mom. It's one of the things that I really am, is persistent. My mom would get so upset at me and she would say, well, you're just a mistake. So I grew up, and this is where my shame became toxic. Shame is hidden. You don't even know you have it. And then you start acting out. You start wanting people to accept you for who they think that you are. So you start being a people pleaser. I mean, my 3 Ps. I people pleased everyone. Why? Because I needed acceptance, because I never got it for who I really was in childhood. In fact, all throughout my years, as the shame grew, I didn't even know who I was. I always felt I wasn't enough. And so I felt like I had to be a perfectionist. I was a great tax CPA, digging in the income tax laws. And let me tell you, now that I'm completely out of that I accept myself, saying I hated that crap. I hated income tax, but I was a perfectionist, so people would pat me on the back and I would get self-acceptance from other people because I never got it out of myself. I felt like I always had to perform for other people. This is the shame thing of conditional love. And it, like I say, toxic shame, the hidden shame you don't even know you have, it causes all addictions. drug, alcohol, pornography, food, exercise. The biggest addiction in America is codependent, where people are dependent on other people to affirm them. People run in the crowd, people all dress the same, their hair's the same, they want to drive the same cars. It's how advertisers showing pictures of cars saying, oh, you know, if you want to be cool, you got to have that car. And that's just crap. So introducing this, this all I'm trying to do is introduce this topic. Shame is something that, number one, we all have. You have it, I have it. Hopefully it's on a small base. That's why I have the line here still small. So we all have it. Number two, no one wants to talk about it. Oh my gosh, I don't want you to know my imperfections, so I'm going to hide them. That's exactly what addicts do. Every time an addict acts out, takes drugs, drinks, whatever, they don't want anybody to know that. And if you challenge them on it, they'll just pound and judge you in the worst way. So we all have it. No one wants to talk about it. And the less we talk about it, the more power it has over us. That's why I can stand right before you today and tell you I was an addict. And I had to solve that. I learned the genesis of my shame. I didn't even know I had it, but when I learned it and could get rid of it and relive my life over, then I got back into here where I totally accept myself. There's nothing anybody could say or do for me. They could judge me all they want. I don't care. And when I got healed, when I moved from here to here, I realized that I had like so-called friends over here, people that I had pleased, and I was a perfectionist. I was a top leader in my company, so people kind of gravitated around. And then when I got healed and I started to affirm who I really was, all these people like, oh my gosh, Mike's an addict. I can't be with him anymore. They just disappeared out of my life. And I don't care, because the friends I got now are based on these things. I am enough, and so are you. If you suffer from any of these, people please, you perform, perfectionist, you know how challenging that is, how utterly hard it is. If you are an addict and you can't stop, maybe you're a food addict and you get into shape, you go to the gym, all right, and then at night the cravings hit, boom, and you self-medicate the pain. You see, when you have this deep shame over here, you self-medicate. That's why we're the most in-debt country on the world. Feel like we have to hawk a credit card to get something so it feels good to buy. And then you buy it. How many of you have then said, oh man, I shouldn't have really bought that? Then you feel guilty. Or oh, I'm doing good. I'm eating my vegetables. I'm feeling great. And all of a sudden, nighttime, silence is around. No one's there to affirm you. You have a trigger, whatever your trigger is. My trigger was loneliness. I was a lonely child. I spent so much time in my bedroom as a child growing up. And so when I hit loneliness, when I'd act out. And so you have triggers. And maybe if a food addict has a trigger, whatever it is, and then they go to the refrigerator and eat, you know, a quart of ice cream, eats cookies. For me, in my addicted state, I also was a food addict. I would have these cravings at nighttime, and I would eat a whole bag of salt and vinegar chips. I'm serious. And I was a weight loss specialist. I could never tell anybody that. See, that's that third thing. I don't want to talk about it. I can't tell people that. Because I got to be this to get people to affirm me. But now over here, it's so beautiful and it's so at peace with myself. If you decide you need help, I'm going to give you a link to the addiction recovery program. Plus, I'm going to give you a YouTube link to watch Brene Brown's highly watched TED Talk on shame. And then I'm going to refer you to 2 books. One from Brene Brown, The Gifts of Imperfection, and one from John Bradshaw. And then I'm going to give you also a link to my website on a 10-part series that John Bradshaw did on using inner child techniques, same techniques that I did, where basically in my adulthood, I had to go backwards in time, relive my childhood, and move forward to where now in my life, I get who I am. And I have so many imperfections, but I don't care. Everybody does. I care about myself. I accept myself. That's the story. I'm sticking to it. If you got value out of this, if you just subscribe so that you can get notified of other videos that I'll be doing on this subject. And I'm also going to get into the subject of parenting by not using shame. Parenting a rambunctious child, that's like I was. My mom and dad wanted to squash me. And they did. But kids, unconditional love. You accept them for exactly who they are. You teach them unconditional love of themselves. Then you're going to have a healthy child who goes through life with peace, self-acceptance, believing they're enough, and they just unconditionally love themselves, and they can unconditionally love others. Subscribe. Take care. Bye now.